Hi, my name is Kimberly, and this is Going Home. And I think in the past few years, I have seen online this vast amount of women who used to kind of be like these sports women or gym rats or partiers or these hardcore boss babies slowly start to bring themselves back home and start to really develop themselves into a more traditional lifestyle. And I certainly see this in the younger generation, what I would say like the 20 to 30 year olds that are really trying to get married and have babies. And I see this revival of this remnant of traditional lifestyle. And I would state to you that that is something that I have definitely done. And I've really had a lot of experiences that I feel like maybe it's time to start sharing online about why I feel that we have so many women who are taking these steps to being traditional and just at home and relying on a man, as they put it. It's kind of a funny thing to state is that my husband said to me recently, you don't socialize a ton. He goes, you don't do what you used to do. And he goes, the majority of the times you're socializing. He goes, you like hanging out with me, but kind of in the background. And I'm like, well, yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to explain to people why I think there's a lot of us that don't enjoy going out into the world anymore and really don't enjoy socializing. And it is because women have gone insane. And the amount of oversharing that comes out of people you just meet is overwhelming. And I think one of the reasons that I don't socialize a lot is because when I go out in the world, I don't really fit in anymore. And I think it's because the people who I would have fit in with are at home with their kids and their husband. And so we're not really out there, living this life that used to be so grand that we saw with our parents or, with maybe parents and, our friends and things along that lines. And I'm going to give some examples of what I'm talking about is why you kind of just look at these people wide-eyed and go, sweetheart, you need to learn a filter. And I miss this in people. I miss filters. I really do. And the reason why I decided that this is going to be something I think I'm going to start being online with and talking about why so many of us are transitioning home or, and just talking about some of these experiences or some advice that we have or just like things we see and think about is the clincher was going to church a couple weeks ago. And my husband ran into this older gentleman, and I would say he's like late 70s, and they're having a great conversation. My husband likes to write books, and they're discussing their, books and things along that lines. And this older gentleman's like, hey, we should have coffee, and we'll go over your books, and we'll just talk about it, and they're just having this fun conversation. And then this man's wife comes walking up, and she introduces herself, and I don't remember her name. And suddenly, she's like looking at me, and just starts going about how her son was in school in the 7th grade and used to walk around all these special needs kids. And she was so happy to have him brought into the Christian world so he can lead as an example. And she discussed how she was adopted and her mom had been married multiple times and that her adopted dad didn't find Jesus till he was on his deathbed and she had forgave him. And that's when they found Jesus. And now her mom, who miraculously was still living, was on her 7th husband and doing great and discussing all these traumas she had went to. And I'm like, lady, could you remind me your name? And I'm like, this is one of the reasons I don't socialize. It really is. It's like this bombardment of so much information that I feel like I need to go have counseling just after this 2-second conversation. I wish it was a 2-second conversation because this woman didn't quit. To the point that I'm standing there 20 minutes. Her husband leans over, kind of does that hand rub like, hey, let's go, honey. But she doesn't move. He goes and sits in his car, enjoying the peace from this woman's stories. And I'm here stuck talking to this person. And I feel like I've had this experience many times where my husband gets to have these very delightful conversations. And I get to suddenly be told all these things that I never needed to know ever in my life, especially not in the first encounter. And I'd like to say this is the first time ever, but no, the other day, I would say, well, not the other day, let's say about 2-3 weeks ago, my cat was super sick and we brought him in. And they were saying that one of the issues with my cat, which I totally don't agree with, was like the psychological stress. And so they had given him some psychotic, calming down medication. And this woman who was a nurse, a veterinary tech, comes walking and she goes, oh, this is the same stuff me and my bulldog are on. I wish I had just made that up. I did not make that up. And I'm sitting there going, thanks for that information, lady. Like, I didn't need to know that. Like, why are you telling me what medication you're on? let alone the fact that you're sharing this with your bulldog. Like, this isn't normal stuff to just randomly say to people. And, this even filters into when I used to work full time, and I still work every once in a while as a sub, just as some supplemental money, but it's certainly not a full-time job. And I remember having kids like throwing stuff and, like they're causing trouble. It was lunchtime and they were throwing food and breaking pencils. And these were teenage kids. And I remember turning to them and go, knock it off. You're too old to be behaving like this. Like, this is ridiculous. And the kid stands up, looks at me and goes, what's the F your problem, B? And I'm like, that's it. That's it. Why am I doing this? Why am I out in the world doing this? And I have so many examples of these sort of scenarios of people coming up, dropping way too much information on me, or just having just flat out misbehavior that you're supposed to go parent, though most people are, even teenagers, are way too old to know better than this. And we like to just discount like, oh, they're teenagers behaving like teenagers. Actually, no, that's unparented, and it's not a charming look on people. And my other example is a day at work, and this was about a year ago, is I was just walking outside, and the school that I was subbing at has 7:30 a.m. They start the day off with recess. And so I enjoyed this. I like being outside. I like being around kids. I think it's a lot of fun. And this woman who's supposed to be out there helping walks up to me, and I go, hey, how are you? Good morning. The mistake was my fault, was going, how are you? When I mean this totally surface, like, it's supposed to be when you say, how are you to someone in the freaking grocery stand, they're supposed to go, great, I'm enjoying watermelon. You're not supposed to give a real answer. I'm sorry, people, you're not. And this is some social cues that people are missing. And she drops on me that her whole family's in counseling and her husband are struggling because he does this sort of stuff and she can't handle it. And the kids are in counseling and they're all talking about getting these medications. And I literally looked at the lady and went, sweetheart, it's not even 8 a.m. This is too much. Which made the other guy standing there laugh pretty hard. But this is what I'm talking about. It's like, it feels to me like all the people who are out in the world now are ones who realize that life is not, living Facebook. We really shouldn't just give all of our opinions and all of our experiences on our life in the first 5 seconds you meet someone. On top of that is the lack of reverence that is involved in our society anymore. And the lack of being able to have any sort of self-control. I walk around people and they're just cussing up a storm. They can't control their emotions. They're revealing way too much and they're constantly trauma dumping on individuals. And this is psychosis, people. This isn't like a normal behavior to have. When you're walking around telling people your intimate details in your first 5 minutes, that's a pretty good sign you're unstable. And it makes a lot of us go, I'm going home. The people there are saying, I know because I raised them and I married them and I can be in control of the conversations I have. And I'm not dealing with the weird stuff that's out in the world. And this is something that should be talked about, that people need to start being told. And I suppose it's like, to me, a lot of this came with the dying of the Karen. Like we shamed the whole world for telling people to knock their crap off. And so now we have uncontrolled behaviors everywhere you go. But it is not normal, wanted, or even interesting to drop your life story on people. Most people are struggling with their own things. And if you're wise, you keep a lot of it to yourself, because another thing is a lot of that stuff can be used against you. Most people don't even have a clue how to handle the workplace anymore. They don't know how to keep it surface. They don't know how to behave professionally. And they don't know how to not involve their life into work. Work and life are very separate things. And there was a thing that you say, like, this is business. We're not doing this. Like, there isn't feelings in business. And to an extent, that's even in the school district. You might have feelings for caring for the kids, but your personal life is supposed to be kept outside, and it's supposed to be kept in your home, and it's supposed to be kept private in your life. And it is a real danger in this world that people have put down all of their boundaries and laid all the cards out on the table and allowed everyone access completely to themselves. And it's a dangerous precedent. It really isn't something that anybody should be telling anyone, and on top of that, none of us want to experience it. We need to remind people that intimate details are for intimate relationships. And intimate relationships take time, and they have actual labels. Your parents are an intimate relationship. Your husband is, your children are, and some of those friends you've had for a really long time. But on average, if you haven't known someone more than a year, you don't have an intimate relationship, and you should be cautious with the things you're sharing with people. But my one of my other things I'd like to state is that everyone is just reveling in trauma. Everyone is living, this constantly reliving what's gone wrong with them, reliving bad conversations and emotions and, like people who have died and things along that lines. And it's a real thing to have. But one thing that no one gets told is that if you don't take time to deal with the trauma, you carry and it kind of strings along behind you everywhere you go. And you should be at a point in your life that if you're intellectual, that you should stop your life. If you're dumping on people this much, actually go deal with your emotional issues and maybe get some counseling, maybe do some, journaling and all these other things, even when it comes to death. But you need to reach a point in your life that trauma stops and you leave it in the past and you move forward. Even in the Bible, that was there. If I remember right, it's David who ends up having his baby sick and dying. And he says that he used to mourn a certain amount of time, and when the mourning's done, you move on. And he had 3 weeks of mourning, and God said, no, the baby's not going to live. This was and then he said, you are to move forward. And that's what life is one thing people are never told is that when bad things happen, stay in that moment and deal with it. Don't leave those moments, and it may take weeks until you've dealt with it and you're not carrying it with you anymore. And this can be some of the worst, most horrible, traumatic things that you can deal with. One of the best things I ever did was go get EMDR. I did that right after my father died, and it was fantastic. And it helps you release these things that you don't carry with you anymore. But on top of that, what most people are not told is you don't actually have to think about it. And it's really good advice not to look back. It's good advice to fix the problems you've been given. It's good advice to seek help. It's good advice to, at some point, come to a conclusion and have it be done. And I'm living in a world where I think people are going out and they're lonely or they're desperate or they feel it's like a way to connect with people. Or even worse, with the Christians, they think this is their Christian story, and so it's their duty to tell people. And instead, what you're doing is trauma dumping on people, and it really pushes people away. And it's a very uncomfortable thing to be living with. And it's an uncomfortable thing to experience. But I'm here to tell you that a lot of things in my life that I would say were super traumatic and super terrible, and they really, could be drug around the rest of my life. The best thing to do was to go, I'm not living it now. And I'm not looking back. And even the Bible states, like, you are to control your thoughts. And when these thoughts come creeping in, go, I don't actually have to think about this anymore. I certainly don't have to talk about it. I can move on from these things. And if I'm not moving on, I have learned to become wise enough to seek help in trusted individuals and not share my life with people. And some of the best friendships I've ever had, and, people are going to get pretty offended by this. We didn't talk about a lot of serious things. It was a reprieve from the things we were dealing with to be able to go sit down, have a conversation, even if it's just about the weather or about your kids or about the sports your kids are in or just anything along that lines, and just bond that way. The thing is our society is living so tight inside of trauma. They don't know how to step out and enjoy life anymore. Or even worse, they only enjoy life and they never deal with the process of, dealing with grieving or trauma or anything else along that lines, or just problems in their life. And so then eventually they have this weird, crash out. But one of the things we're never telling people, and outside the fact is going, you need to deal with your trauma and you need to deal with your problems, and you need to stop dumping it on people you don't know. And you need to realize there are points in life that you can just leave it behind and never deal with it again. You're allowed to let that stuff go. That's one of the best parts of being a Christian is like, we screwed up. We did all these things. Maybe we've hurt people. Maybe they've hurt us. But forgiveness is this, acts of freedom. It's like you get to just let these things go. But the other end of this that are not being told to people is that life's hard. And you kind of got to suck it up, buttercup. And it makes you a better person if you become strong and stoic and resilient and not need to dump every single problem on somebody else, but be the person who actually blocks other individuals from needing to experience pain. I don't know where in life there came this thing where it's like we're supposed to be constantly happy, constantly entertained, constantly just in the spiral of refusing to understand that life can be really difficult. And some of the difficulties are the best things that can happen in your life, but we avoid them all. And we live so much in the past that we can't even deal with the problems that are in front of us now because we're still trying to tackle something that happened to us when we were a kid. But it's important to realize that life's hard and life is tough. And when you're going around dumping all your problems on someone else, it's like maybe you don't even realize that you've just dumped a ton more on someone when they already had enough to deal with. Your problems are your own. And it's really time to stop vocalizing all this on social media. It's really time to stop just dumping it on people, especially if you just know them. I mean, I have random people come up to me in the store and just start just telling me stuff. It's my fault. I made eye contact. I might have said hi. I might nodded my head. My husband laughs pretty hard about the talent I have of drawing in people to give me weird, in-depth stories. And it's wild. But it's made me where I actually start avoiding people. It's like when I walk out of church, there's a few people I've definitely bounced to say hi to because I enjoy their company. And there's other ones that's going, no, we're not doing that one again. Nope. Rip that Band-Aid off. Saw the oozing pus. We're not doing that one again. And it's made it where I tell my husband, I became pretty antisocial because I don't want to deal with everyone's crap anymore. I'd like to go back to being able to smile at people like we used to do in the 50s and kind of hide our lives a little bit. I really miss the mystery and the stoicness of all of it. And people are going to get so annoyed and frustrated with me for this. But I'm telling you, you're not doing the world the favor by just constantly ranting and raving, giving your political views, and all these other views to people, or your life stories and the things you're dealing with the counseling and the amount of medications you're on and things along that lines. We used to reserve these sort of behaviors for 80-year-old men that, are having gout issues. Like we used to say that was like the age you were able to do this. Like once you hit 75, the only thing you got are your medical issues. And so that was like the age you got to. But the problem is so many of us are starting this in their 20s. And it's time to stop. It really is. It is time to regain some of the boundaries back in people's lives and allow people to go, there's stages into my life. And the first stage is going, hey, look at the great clouds this morning. And that's your first step with every single person you meet. If you don't know them, is that it's a blessing to be able to keep it surface. And this is a blessing to you also. It's a blessing because you don't have to constantly live in all of these traumatic things you've been through. Another thing is you were supposed to learn from them and move on from them and apply them to your life, not dump them on other people. You're supposed to apply the problems you get in your life, work through them, gain knowledge and wisdom and some reverence to eventually share that with people in the appropriate manner and timing, not randomly because somebody said hi to you or, complimented your shirt or something along that lines. And so I'm trying to remind people here is that there's a lot of people out there, and it used to be standard, that kept things surface. And if you don't like small talk, that's perfectly fine. You're kind of my people. But I'm telling you one thing is I don't want big talk. Even my husband and I, we definitely sit down, we work out our problems, but we have learned once that problem's worked out, we apply what we've tried to, work out and we move forward. Otherwise, we just keep spiraling and it keeps us in constant tension. And it's time to let go, people. If something has happened to you when you're 8 years old, I'm sorry, but it's time to let it go. I like to tell my kids who are not 30 yet that they can blame me for what happened till they're 30. And then after that, it's your fault. So all of you definitely over 30, if you're still whining about your parents, it's 100% completely your fault. Unconditionally. You need to grow up. And adulthood is really lacking in just about every generation that's 20 and up. And we expect kids to behave better than we do. But here's some advice, people. Suck it up, buttercup, which is one of the best lines out there, and it just flows so easy. But I'm avoiding you. I really am avoiding you, and I'm avoiding a lot of things now, and I've went home because I can't handle it. And one of these days, I'm going to be that person that goes, what the heck's wrong with you? And I don't want to do that to people. So I'm just going to sit here and tell you right now, you're probably oversharing and you need to stop not the only one who's been through hurts in life, not the only one who's been through trauma. Maybe your trauma has been pretty severe, but so's most everybody's. I'm sorry to break it to you. And a lot of us are just going, we're just trying to get through the day, sweetheart, without having to go wash ourselves clean from whatever it is you thought we should have known about you. And so it's one of the reasons I went home. I went home because I'm tired of people. I really am. And maybe you're tired of them too. Or maybe you're going to tell us something like, oh, I've been an overshare and it needs to stop. But it's the number one reason I just said to my husband, go, yeah, I'm going home. All my favorite people are there. I made the people that I like, and I made sure to hone them into things I like too. So it's like, why would I want to be anywhere else? I enjoy being at home. And I'm probably going to avoid you.